So it is springtime here on the farm, and we want to take this opportunity to get out and give a farm tour, show you what we have been doing all winter and how the farm looks when we start up in the spring. That way we can give you a baseline so that as through the summer and through the rest of the season we can give you updates and you can see how everything evolves and how things change here on the farm. Behind me is our main rose garden. You can see it's a little bit weedy. This is our project for the week, is to come through and weed these roses, but they're really looking good, and we're excited to see their beautiful faces here in just about a month. So this is what was our original garden when we moved onto this property, and it's been a lot of things over the years. Most recently it was filled with peonies, but it is the trees around us are starting to grow up and it got to be a little bit shady, so we removed all the peonies and took them down to the field to put with the rest of the peony crop, and we're going to transition this garden into shade gardens. So we've started by putting in some Solomon seal and getting these beds prepped for the fall planting, and in the meantime I'm taking them over and using them to grow vegetables on. So in the future we'll have more shade crops here, but right now we're in transition. This is a different rose garden. This is all Coco Locos. So we're gonna come through again and weed through this section this week and then get them all prepped for their first bloom, hopefully end of May, beginning of June. So let's walk through our 4 greenhouses that are here on our home property, starting with this hoop, which is hoop 1. Hoop 1 was the first hoop that we built. So it had anemones and mums in it, which we tore all out. It has 1 row of sweet peas in it right now. Other than that, we're looking to rehab the soil in this greenhouse and then get it replanted in the fall. So maybe something in the summertime, but for sure we're going to rehab the soil and get it all prepped to plant. So this is hoop 2, second hoop we built. We have in here right now a line of sweet peas and then 2 beds full of Italian poppies. These are poppies that could be overwintered, but we chose to plant them in the spring because we don't really have a very solid market for them until late spring, early summer. So that's when we like to have them bloom. They're looking really good, and hopefully we'll have some blooms on them soon. Here we are in hoop 3. Hoop 3 is full of Coco Locos on either side, and then down the middle we have 2 rows of sweet peas, which are starting to climb. I spent some time in here last week pinning them up and getting them trained, and then of course constantly weeding everything. But the sweet peas are starting to bloom, so that's exciting, and we'll have lots and lots of beautiful flowers off of them soon. This is hoop 4. This is the most recent hoop that we've built. It's also the largest hoop that we've built. And right now it has in it the remaining ranunculus that we're cutting on, just kind of the final of that crop before we pull it out and replant that bed. And then 2 rows of sweet peas behind me that are again starting to crawl and looking really good. And then this also has 2 rows of roses in it that I'm going to walk you through because they are just starting to color up and bloom, and they look really nice right now. So let's check that out. So this variety is obviously starting to bloom. It is the middle of April right now, so this is a little bit early, but we're thrilled to see them. This is Pope John Paul. It's a week's rose. It looks really good in the house, and we're going to start cutting on them this week. And then the next rose over looks like it's budded up, but we probably won't start cutting on that for another couple of weeks. But it's always nice to have some early blooms that are coming out of the houses. So we've made our way down to our first of our auxiliary fields. This is about a mile away from our home field. So this is field 1 is what we call it. There are kind of 2 sections of field 1. One is behind me. We call it the half moon. And the half moon in the past has been dahlias. This year we decided to do something a little different, and we seeded stuff in here. So there's sunflowers, there are bachelor's buttons, and some other kind of cooler season annual crops that we seeded yesterday, so this rain is very timely. And then over this way is our main dahlia field. So this field is almost exactly an acre, and we have about 60 different varieties of dahlias in this field. They are all planted, they're all mulched, they're all ready to go. In fact, we were just walking through yesterday and saw the very first of one of the varieties popping out of the ground. So that's pretty early, but also pretty exciting. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we're past all of our hard frosts, so we won't see any damage from that. But this is what we would consider our wholesale designer field of dahlias. Lots of really pretty dahlias in here, and we'll come back and check in just a couple of months and you'll be able to see all the beauty. We're off to field 2, so I thought I'd just give you a little drive-by of field 1 so you can see all the beds. Nice and mulched, and the drip is all pulled, so we're pretty much locked and loaded on this field. Now we are in what we call field 2. So this is a much larger field, and I'm going to give you kind of the overview of what we got going on, and then we'll kind of walk down and show you a couple of different places. Right behind me is an area that we are planning. Our plan is to put in a large vegetable garden for us and the crew so that we make sure that everybody has nice fresh produce for the summer. And then behind that you can see like a kind of a greeny area. That's all cover cropped. There are a couple of sections of this field that we have cover cropped, and then there's some of it that's planted and ready to go. So we'll walk you out there and show you what we got going on. In field 1 we have lots of our designer dahlias, like I said, more muted tones, whites, peaches, pinks. And here behind me in field 2, this is about 37 rows that we have of grocery dahlias and whole bouquet dahlias. So this is a lot of bright colors, lots of bicolors, really fun, vivid color and shapes over here. So we have about half of this mulched, and then we're going to get to hopefully the rest at the beginning of this next week, and then they'll be all set besides getting irrigation pulled on them for the season. Over here in eucalyptus land, we've got the weeded. It's all pruned back. I have a video up about that winter maintenance if you want to check that out. We have about 5 varieties back here that are all getting ready to put on their spring growth, and so we're just going to mulch them and move forward. So here in field 2 we have 2 of these field greenhouses, and this is, we call it clover. In here we have 2 rows of dahlias, so these will be our early dahlias that we'll be cutting on before the field dahlias, fingers crossed. And then we also have a row of tuberose in here, which has been kind of an experiment for the last 2 years. This is its 2nd year, and we'll see what it does. We don't get super hot super fast in the spring, so we had a little bit of a hard time getting it to bloom last year, but I have high hopes for this year. This is the other field hoop that we have, so we call this one Crimson. And in Crimson we have a row of scented geraniums that overwintered from last year, which is pretty exciting. So we've got this great patch of, it's a little spotty, but overwintered scented geraniums that are getting ready to go bonkers. We will go ahead and fill in the rest of that row with cuttings from those varieties just to make sure that we're utilizing our space optimally. In the center here is our hoop house cafe au laits and sweet natalies. So these are designer flowers that we usually grow for early June weddings. And then we have a little bit of an experiment going with some freesias and crates that just got moved down here out of the hoop houses, or the greenhouses up at the house. And on the far left there are all of our overwintered chrysanthemums, and we're getting ready to shear those back and take a whole bunch of cuttings and get them to bush out and get ready for the summer growth. So down here in the fields we have a lot of deer pressure, and so we try to mediate that with crops as much as we can by really planning out where we plant things. So our deer don't bother our dahlias, so they're pretty much safe out in the open. But we did want to utilize the space between these 2 hoops by putting up deer fencing and planting crops in here that the deer love. 2 of those crops that are in here this year, one is roses. We just put in a couple hundred honey Dijons that are going to hopefully be protected from the deer behind this fence. And then we have what is turning out to be a fairly beautiful 3rd year crop of columbine that's behind the fence as well. So this section of field 2 is our main peony patch. So these are all 3rd year peonies. There's I think about 7, maybe 9 different varieties out here. This is their 3rd year, so this is the first year that we are going to be cutting on them any quantity or volume, but they're looking really good. They just got weeded, so they're looking particularly good right now. And then as we get out of the peonies, we're moving into our perennial section of crops that start right here with this beautiful patch of lupin, and then a huge patch of artichokes that we planted last year with intention of cutting foliage, and then a lot of them overwintered, so we have quite a little bumper crop of artichokes coming on, which I guess we're in a debate whether we're going to cut them for flowers or whether we're just going to eat them because they're delicious. Up at the house, I pointed out the garden where we just moved a whole bunch of peonies out of, and this is where those peonies came down to. So these are all transplanted peonies. A lot of them have been in the ground up at the house for 3 or 4 years, so this will be their 5th or 6th season, and they're looking really good. Let's see what else is out here. We have a whole bunch of digitalis. There is some overwintered feverfew that looks great, some more artichokes, some crocosmia, lupin, veronica, and then there are some trial perennials that we're doing. And then as we get to the very end of this field, this beautiful patch of soil down here is going to be the main patch of our lisianthus this year, which are going to start getting planted here in a couple of days. So we're prepping that, and we'll be pulling out weed mat on that tomorrow in preparation for those getting in there this week. So the rest of the field here and field 2 will be put into annuals as the plugs get ready in the greenhouse and are getting planted. So you can see we've got compost been delivered, and we've already tilled in the cover crop in preparation of getting those beds ready to go. Next up, we are in field 3. So field 3 is a field that we've just taken over and we're just starting to establish. So you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of not blackberries, Christmas trees behind me that are going to get harvested this year so we can put more flower crop in. Currently we have blackberries and raspberries planted for foliage here on this part of this field, and then as we move our way that way, we have some gladiolas and our field crop mums, and then a really nice cover crop that we're getting ready to till in so that we can get some other annuals back here. The remainder of field 3, so behind me, it's just a little bit less than an acre, will all be in ornamental squash and pumpkins. We had them here last year as well, and you can see that we're in the process of resetting the beds with the compost, and we'll go through and pull biodegradable plastic on those beds to plant the squash through. So this is a brand new field for us this year. We just signed leases on this land. So field 4 behind me is primarily going to be cover cropped this year, but if we do end up planting things, it'll probably be things like sunflowers or other annual crops that we can utilize the space for. Field 5 behind me, this is also a new field to us this year. We've got it cover cropped right now. We're going to get in here this week and mow it down and get it prepped because this is going to be our overflow ornamental squash and pumpkin area this year, and then in the fall it'll be getting put into woodies. So I'm excited about that. All right, so last but not least, this is field 6, another new field to us. So we've got it cover cropped right now. It's totally planted in wheat, and we're gonna come through, we'll mow this down. This field, we really have plans to keep it mostly in cover crop and to grow some biomass type crops like broom corn so that we can start to build back up the soil for future planting. So that is a quick overview of what the farm looks like here, middle of April, spring in Oregon. So I hope that you will come back, follow along throughout the season as we do more farm tours to let you know how things look as we keep going through the summer and into the fall. And in the meantime, thanks for swinging by the farm. We'll see you next time.